Someone died last night in your city. Their family was told at 11 p.m. By morning, the body was moved. By the following week, the funeral was scheduled, attended, and finished. By the week after that, colleagues were sending emails asking if they were back yet. Modern grief runs on a schedule. Ancient grief did not. And the difference between those two approaches, what ancient humans actually did when someone died versus what modern life replaced it with, might explain something about why grief today feels so much harder than it should. In 2015, paleoanthropologist Lee Berger at the University of the Witwatersrand made a discovery that stopped the scientific world. Deep inside a cave system in South Africa, accessible only through a narrow passage barely wide enough for a human body, his team found a chamber containing the remains of at least 15 individuals of a previously unknown human species. No carnivore marks, no flood damage, no accidental accumulation. The only explanation was deliberate placement. These bodies had been carried, intentionally, repeatedly, through a passage so narrow it required conscious effort, into a chamber so deep it served no practical purpose. The species was Homo naledi, brain size 1/3 of ours, living over 250,000 years ago. They were burying their dead before modern humans existed. Berger's conclusion was simple and devastating. The impulse to do something deliberate with the bodies of the dead is not a product of religion or civilization or modern emotional complexity. It is older than our species. It is biological. But what specifically did your ancestors do? Not Homo naledi, your direct ancestors, the anatomically modern humans who looked exactly like you and whose psychological architecture you inherited completely. What happened in those camps when someone died? Archaeologist April Noel at the University of Victoria spent years analyzing mortuary evidence from early modern human sites across 3 continents. Her findings dismantled every assumption about ancient death practices being primitive or brief. The body stayed. Not for hours, for days, sometimes longer. The entire group gathered around it, sat with it, touched it, spoke to it. The dead person remained at the center of community life for a period determined not by a schedule, but by the visible state of the group around them. Red ochre, the same pigment used in body decoration for social signaling, was applied to the bodies of the dead in burial sites dating back over 100,000 years. Personal objects were placed alongside: tools, beads, food, flowers where preservation allowed identification. The ancient dead were not disposed of quickly. They were cared for slowly, communally, with the full participation of everyone who had known them. This was not ritual for ritual's sake. The research says it was biology. Neuroscientist Mary Frances O'Connor at the University of Arizona spent over a decade using brain imaging technology to study what actually happens inside the grieving brain. Her finding was not what psychiatry expected. When someone we are deeply bonded to dies, the brain does not simply register the loss and begin healing. The neural systems that track the locations and expected behaviors of close attachment figures, systems built over millions of years to monitor the whereabouts of people whose presence was critical to survival, do not switch off. They keep searching. They keep generating predictions about where the person will be, what they will do, when they will return. And they keep producing a distress signal every single time reality fails to match those predictions. This is not malfunction. This is a precise biological system doing exactly what it was built to do. In the ancestral world, absence almost always meant temporary separation. The system was designed to generate distress because distress motivates search. Distress makes you go looking. Distress keeps you from accepting absence too quickly. Death is the one absence from which the person does not return, and the brain has to learn this, slowly, through repeated experiences of absence without reunion, through a process of neural recalibration that O'Connor describes as one of the most demanding cognitive tasks the human brain ever performs. That process requires time. It requires the physical presence of others, and it requires the specific social inputs, touch, proximity, shared acknowledgement, that confirm the larger attachment network is intact even though one member of it is gone. The ancient community gathered around the body and stayed for days because the grieving brain needed them to. Not symbolically, biologically. Now think about what modern life replaced this with. 3 days between death and funeral, 1 hour of ceremony, a week of sympathy. Then the emails asking if you are back yet. The neural updating process that O'Connor documented takes months. The modern grief schedule gives it days. What happens to the updating process when it is interrupted before completion? Prolonged grief disorder. The clinical condition in which grief becomes stuck. The attachment system continues searching. The person remains in a chronic state of looking for someone who cannot be found. Unable to move forward because the brain never completed the recalibration it was trying to perform. Psychiatrist Catherine Shear at Columbia University spent her career studying complicated grief. Her research identified the factors most consistently associated with grief becoming stuck. The absence of extended social support in the days immediately following loss. Premature return to normal function before the neural process was substantially complete. The specific cultural suppression of extended mourning that modern Western society systematically enforces. These are not random risk factors. They are precise descriptions of what modern death management reliably produces in every bereaved person it touches. The conditions that cause complicated grief today are the conditions that modern funerals reliably create. There is one more thing ancient communities did when someone died that the anthropological record shows with extraordinary consistency across every culture ever studied. They made noise. Collective, sustained, community-wide vocalization of grief, wailing, keening, communal singing, ritual lament. The specific practice of making the grief audible, giving it a physical form in sound, produced together, released into the shared air. Musicologist Ellen Dissanayake at the University of Washington spent decades studying the evolutionary origins of collective vocalization. Her research found something that reframed the entire practice. When a group vocalizes together in a coordinated way, the brains of every participant synchronize their neural oscillations. This process, called neural entrainment, produces a measurable release of endorphins, a reduction in cortisol, and an increase in oxytocin simultaneously. The three chemicals most associated with social bonding, stress relief, and the biological sensation of being held by your group. Ancient communities were not wailing because grief overwhelmed them into sound. They were wailing because sound was medicine. A precise, biologically calibrated mechanism by which the community could directly alter the neurochemical state of everyone present, the bereaved and the supporting both. The grief made audible became the grief made shared. And shared grief, the neuroscience shows, processes faster and damages less than private grief held silently inside a single body. Modern funerals are quiet. Ancient death was loud. And the silence of modern grief may be one of the most costly things we ever decided was civilized. The woman sitting in your city right now whose family got the phone call at 11 p.m. last night, her brain is doing what every human brain has done for 300,000 years. It is searching. It will keep searching for months, maybe longer, looking for someone in every familiar place, generating predictions that reality keeps failing to confirm, producing the specific distress signal that was built to motivate reunion with someone who is not coming back. What her brain needs is what ancient communities provided automatically. People, present. For days, not hours. Touch, sound. The specific sensory confirmation that the larger group is intact, that the loss is real and acknowledged, and not hers alone to carry. What modern life will give her is a schedule, a ceremony, a week. Then the expectation of return to function before the neural process has had time to do what it was built to do. Her grief is not a disorder. Her grief is correct. The disorder is everything around it.